Alright everybody, hello. My name is Vladimir. I've been, doing a couple videos on YouTube recently about tutorials and different things. I wanted to do this video to try to address an issue that I think that, I've been thinking about for a long time, and I think that I can maybe help somebody with it because I went through the same problem. It's basically how to succeed slash survive in engineering college or engineering school, what have you. So part of the thing is that I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I went through high school with straight A's, actually with a 4.4 weighted, right, because of um, advanced placement courses. And what's happened is that basically when you go into college, I also did very well in college, and then right after the second year things started to get very tough, and I did badly, and then I started to question myself again, like whether or not I should be an engineer, whether I'm cut out for it. And then I got to the point where I turned myself around. I learned how to study. I learned the reasons why I'm studying, and I know it sounds ridiculous, right? But it's the truth. And then now I'm at the point where I make pretty much straight A's again, and my GPA is, I'm very happy with my GPA, and I'm very confident about my career in general. So here, this is the thing. I've got a small list of suggestions that I'd like to shoot out to you guys. I think it's important because I've met a lot of my friends who, you come up to them and they're sitting there down in the dumps, and you ask them what's going on. They ask the same thing. They say the same thing, I did badly in the exam, like I'm just not sure I'm cut out for it. I studied so hard, and then when I got to the exam, poof, I didn't know anything. And I know there's probably some psychologist that has a name for that syndrome, but then, there's also one of my friends who is a little bit younger than myself and is in engineering school, recently complained about having problems, and I feel bad because I can't see him in person and talk to him in person. So I want to make this short video primarily for that person, but anybody else as well. So the main question, the first question, the huge question is, do you want to be an engineer? It sounds obvious, right? But the problem is that a lot of people, I think that they attack the problem from the wrong angle. So they question whether or not they're cut out to be an engineer. They question, whether they should be an engineer in the sense that, do they deserve to be an engineer? And unfortunately, I think that view is wrong, because I believe that most people, if you want to be an engineer, you be an engineer. You can be an engineer. It just takes a very sincere dedication towards that particular education, and you have to know why you're studying. If you don't know why you're studying, and I mean really know and really thoroughly understand the reason why you're in school and the reason why you're putting yourself through this huge amount of work, you have to know that. You have to know that you want to be an engineer. You can't just have decided one day that you wanted to be an engineer, went into school and started studying, and then when going got tough, you question, oh, I don't know, and you quit. And then a lot of people that quit, they regret it for the rest of their lives, because they didn't quit for the right reasons. That's really what I'm trying to say, is that if you do quit, it's okay to quit, and quit, and by quit, it's not even quitting. A lot of people, you just move to another degree that's more suited to you. And so that's part of the message I'm trying to get through to you, is that if you quit, if you change degrees, make sure it's for the right reason. And my hopes is that you stay in engineering, because engineering needs we need more American engineers, and this is kind of, I mean, this can fit all over the world, but unfortunately everyone, you know, knows that in America our education is faltering in the sense that we have less engineers than we need, and you know, less people coming out of high school want to be an engineer, you know, so, or are prepared for it. So here's the thing. Do you want to be an engineer? You need to do your research and figure that out, and very thoroughly find out what is like the daily activity of the engineer that you are studying to be. You know, be it mechanical, electrical, aerospace, whatever, ocean engineering, which is a pretty, seems like a pretty cool discipline. That, like the university where I go to, by the way, I'm in my last year of engineering. So also I wanted to say that, you know, if you like what I'm saying, if you think that what I'm saying might help anybody, I never have asked anyone to do this, but go ahead and, you know, I guess liking it puts it up higher, and the reason why is because I would be, you know, very thrilled if that meant that it might help somebody else. So anyways, if you're depressed about it, and you're depressed about school and you don't think you're doing well, figure out if you want to be an engineer. Once you figure out you want to be an engineer, you know where you're doing it. This is the next couple things is what you should do after that point. So the first thing and the most important point that I can say, and I think that anybody can give to you as an engineering school student, is communicate. What does that mean? So you have to learn how to communicate. I think that a majority of engineering students have difficulty communicating, like myself, right? Communicating with each other, with the teacher's assistants, with the professors. Okay, this is critical because you will, you know, I think your most important tool in engineering school is actually the person sitting right next to you. That person might know things like, you know, how does this professor grade? He might have had the professor in another course, or one of his friends had the professor and told him that, you know, this guy grades such and such way, and you know, he might know what to expect during the test. I'm not talking about cheating, okay? I'm definitely not talking about cheating. Do not cheat. Cheaters are losers. Cheaters are disgusting. There will be a point in time when someone comes up to you and like has either the exact exam, right, and they're like, here, you know, copy all the problems right before the test, and there might be other times where you'll have like somebody show up and they have like the exact report, because, you know, the professors, I don't want to call a professor lazy, but the professor has been giving the same exact report assignment for like, you know, 5 or 6 years. So of course, you know, over that time there are these like anonymous reports flowing around where basically if you want it, you can take it and copy it down and submit it, and from what I hear, like 80% of the time they don't catch it. The problem is that you're not doing yourself a favor, you're doing yourself wrong by cheating. It's a fact, and in the beginning you don't see it that much, you don't see the results of it, but later on those people who cheat, you know, they can't justify themselves when they go to work, when in the last years of engineering they won't do as well, you know, on their projects, because later on in engineering, in the beginning you're taking tests. And right now I'm at the point where I have almost no tests, almost. I mean, I have this year, before I graduate, I maybe have like 5 exams, you know, and that's it, and for all my classes. And that's very little, you know. When you compare it to the earlier years, everything was exams. Now it's all reports and projects. So anyways, don't cheat, because those people they don't have the knowledge that you have from studying over the years. They don't have the thorough understanding. That's another thing, is that, you know, some people, oh, you know, I'm not going to study for this test because the equations, you know, I can just look them. Okay, so, by the way, I have to apologize. I look like crap because I didn't sleep at all last night. My wife and I are having our first child, and we're at that point where, neither one of us can sleep because the baby's like super active at night. So, anyways, I talked about communication. You have to literally go into class, start talking to the person next to you in your statics class. You have to grab, that class and convert it from like an auditorium class. You have to squeeze it down to like a 20-30 person class by communicating with whoever's teaching the class. I mean, part of what helped me is that I went to like a 50,000 student school, and then when I started doing badly, I decided to go back like closer to my family and everything, and then I ended up going to like a 30,000 student school. And what I found was, I mean, for me it was just a whole world of a difference, because all of a sudden, you go to the auditorium class. The auditorium class is just, I think it's disgusting for, educational purposes. It's terrible because, the main thing, one big problem is that you don't have any kind of, it's like as if you're watching the TV and you don't have any communication with the professor, in this 300 person room, right? And you can't ask any questions. And of course, if you're in that situation, you're not going to pay as much attention as you should, unless you force yourself to. You have to very aggressively force yourself to communicate with the professor if he allows you to, right? Some professors don't want you to, but if he is the type that he's okay with questions, if he's okay with like answers, question answer kind of situation, then that's great. And you have to communicate with him. You also have to communicate with the people around you, not during the class, but like come in before, talk to them about the homework assignment. What you'll find out is that it's tough, but it's tough for everybody. Okay, what you're going through is not uncommon. Okay, this feeling even that is so difficult. I don't know like how to succeed. Most of the engineering students feel the same thing, and for whatever reason, a lot of them drop out because they can't deal with it, and other people, they end up staying. So you have to communicate, make the auditorium smaller. Don't do what all of these students do in these like big schools, where like they come in and all of a sudden it feels like it's not cool to take notes. You know what I mean? It's so ridiculous. Like you're in college, so like everyone flips out their laptop, right? And or tablet now. Now it's tablets, and that's great. That's great if you're like a fantastic, tablet note taker. But for most people, it's like a fashion statement, and it's wrong. You're wasting your time with that. What you need to do is get engaged in the class and engaged in the teacher. Sit in the first 2 or 3 rows. Where I like to sit is I like the first row on the corners, first row on the edges. And what that does for me is I'm in the front, I'm engaged. The professor knows my face, he knows my name. I am in the front of the room, but I'm on the side so that if I get tired, I can kind of, lean on the wall or something, because, it's exhausting. Sometimes 2.5-hour classes, can be tiring. So, during a class, one huge problem is, I've been saying, communicate. The engineering students, they're shy, a lot of them, including myself. When I started to go into the classes, I was quiet, I was nervous about saying the wrong answer, right? And that's completely wrong, because it's not going to help you. My opinion is that you should be, raising your hand, asking questions, and if the professor is one that likes to ask the audience questions, always be the first, or if not the first, one of the first people who raises their hand and tries to answer the question. It doesn't, it doesn't matter as much that you get all the answers right. And I'll give you an example really quickly. If you guys take dynamics, I had one time, I think this is, the dumbest answer to the question I've ever had. I had, let me try to remember what the heck I said. I remember what the variable was. Basically, the professor asked, he was going through dynamics, and at one point he asked, like, what is I? And damn, I can't remember what I said wrong, but in other words, I just popped my hand up, and without thinking about it, which isn't right, you have to think about your answer. Without thinking about it, I gave the wrong answer, and the guy next to me kind of like smirked and laughed, because I guess he didn't like the fact that I was trying to engage myself in the class. And you know what? That guy is no longer in the engineering college anymore. He dropped out. He doesn't like exist anymore. So it's like, there are those people who want to look cool, but then there are the people who want to learn, right? You have to be one of the people who want to learn and engage yourself in the class. You should also try to go to professors' offices and talk to them, ask them, like in the first week of class, go and ask them, like, what can I do to succeed in your class? I'm very interested in your subject. What's the best way to study for your class or your test, or whatever you might want to say. But it shows that you care and it means something to them, at least most of them. Same thing with the TAs. In a larger school, you end up speaking with the TAs. Unfortunately, you don't get like the access to professors that you should, I think. But okay, you have to make do with what you have. You go to the front of the class, you communicate with the professor, answer your questions, work problems while you're in the class, right? So while he's teaching, you're working out the same problem on your own, and what you might find sometimes is you'll come up with a different answer, and you have to, and also, not so much, sometimes you might come up with a different answer, but you might go through the question a different route. You might take a different technique to answer it, and that might be fine, but you should raise your hand and ask, listen, is there a reason why we did it this way as opposed to using this equation and substituting into that one and then getting this answer? And what you might find out is that although you got the right answer, perhaps it wasn't the right technique. Maybe for in thermodynamics, maybe you weren't allowed to use that specific equation because in the problem statement they had made it known that you shouldn't use that equation. So communicate with your professors, because when you go and you talk to the professors, they'll help you. They might give you some great tips, and then also tell them that you're interested in helping them in their research, right? And really kind of you have to remind them often, because the thing is that you're competing against a lot of students. Engineering students are usually pretty intelligent, you know what I mean? And really what I mean by that is that your competition is tough. So you have to realize that you have to be aggressive with certain, certain things in the school. Your study habits have to be aggressive, and you also should be aggressive towards like certain positions in the school. If there's an internship open, you have to go and grab it, and you have to try to figure out who are the people who know the people interviewing, maybe you might know. So anyways, communicate. The last thing I'm going to say about communicate is that you need to go to the engineering computer lab, okay? You need to find out where that is if you haven't been there yet. There's always going to be some kind of lab or study hall for engineers in maybe the engineering college, right? And you have to start studying there. At least sometimes, because you're going to find that there's like a wealth of information in that room. There are people who are freshmen all the way up to, they're really sometimes people doing a master's degree. Usually the PhD students have their own like room somewhere, right? But the point is that you're going to find out that you can learn so much from the people just like even a semester ahead of you or a year ahead of you. You're going to learn things about professors and everything like that. And also, So I was saying that, you know, yeah, a lot of people when they come out of high school, they don't have to study hard. They kind of breeze through it, right? You can't do that at the upper level engineering courses. You just can't. In fact, most people, once you hit Calc 2, you can't do that anymore. Once you hit Physics 2, Calc 2, you know, say goodbye to those kinds of days, right? You have to study. Where before I could only study maybe 3 hours, now I study. It's a job. I study all day long. 12 hours, you know, what I'll do is, I don't know exactly the number of hours because it changes every day, but definitely I can say that I get there in time for classes or earlier, and then right after class I will hit the engineering lab, right? And I go there and I don't leave until I've finished what I need to do. And that very often is like 10 p.m. Okay, so 8, 9, 10 p.m. that's normal. And like you talk to the guys, you know, around, you know, gain knowledge of what it takes to complete that degree by speaking to the seniors, and also talk to them about, you know, the benefits of it. What do they find rewarding about it? Because you'll find that a lot of people work their butts out, but they love it. You know what I mean? So, you have to go to that engineering lab. You have to use it. You have to maybe start studying there. You have to also, I want to talk about studying habits. I kind of like went into this subject already, but studying habits. I talked about the classroom. I talked about the engineering lab, which is a huge source of information. The other thing is you have to eliminate any kind of obstacles that, you know, are in the way of you and studying well. And that, you know, it depends on your situation. Some people live in dorms. I know that when I lived in dorms, it was terrible because you had like, you were sharing your shared living with like 4 or 5 other guys. I was the only engineer, and all the rest were like, you know, smoking weed and like just kind of like doing sort of a business degree, but they don't even know, undecided. And like you come home every day and they're drinking, they're playing video games, they're smoking, you know what I mean? And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning or later, and they're still like doing their thing downstairs, you know what I mean? And like there's just constant partying. You have to get away from that. You know, that's not what you're there for. I haven't said this yet, but do not do drugs. You know, I've always been clean, and I think that that's given me kind of a third-person perspective on things, in the sense that I never smoked any weed and any other kinds of drugs. And I know a lot of people won't agree with me on this, but I suggest, and my feeling is, don't do any drugs, including, you know, pot, because it dumbs you down. It has long-term effects on your brain, and that's a proven fact. And you will also kind of lose your appetite for studying, and I saw that in a lot of people I knew. You have to stay clean, and that includes pot. You know, don't do too much drinking. A lot of people, I think, they come into school maybe not drinking a lot before, and then they just boom, they go crazy. You know, it's okay to have a couple drinks here and there, but don't go crazy on it. The other thing is, don't take these stupid, I mean, it's like, I don't want to get too into it, but like I'm so, you know, avidly against study pills. Okay, so this is something that, like, I don't know how long it's been around, but I think it's not that long, that, you know, that hasn't been around for that long, where basically in like, even amidst like intelligent, you know, like smart guys, okay, they're selling this stuff where, you know, it's like $5 a pill, and it's like they call it a study aid, okay, and so it's supposed to make you like be really focused, right, for the couple hours before the exam. It's bullshit. Excuse my language, but it's bullshit, because what you need to do is study every day, or almost every day, throughout the whole semester. You get an early jump on it the first week. You know, you don't wait for the first exam. These guys who are taking these pills, the guys who wait until the last minute to study, and they're like, oh, it just gives me the extra oomph, like, you know, it just gives it, and they're wrong. It's screwing it with their body, it's screwing with their minds. You have to stay away from that. You know, the right way to do it is you study almost every single day, starting with the first week of class. You don't wait until the third week of class and your first exam. You do the suggested homework, right? You do more than the suggested homework. You keep studying until you understand it, because again, you know why you want to be an engineer. It's not something that someone's telling you to do. You're doing it for yourself, right? So all of the physics homework, all of the dynamics, the fluids homework, I guess like the calculus, the differential equations, excuse me, you're doing it for yourself. You know, study avidly, study like 6 to 8 or more hours a day, and you know, don't do any drugs, communicate. I'm just going back through the list. That's pretty much it, guys. You know, that's all the advice I can give at the moment. The last thing I want to say is, if you're to the point where you're so down and so depressed and you don't know what to do, you know, I strongly suggest to take a break. You know, take a break, take one semester off. There's somebody walking like back and forth outside of my window, and it really it really is catching my attention, because the reflection is reflecting off of this window. So do not force yourself to keep going if you're at the breaking point. You know, you have to know your limits. And I think it's so sad where like you'll hear on the news where there's like some young guy who took his life. I mean, the guy's like less than 25 years old, and he took his life. And I think that's it's sad, because it's avoidable. You know what I mean? Those things are avoidable. If you feel like you're at that point, you really need to stop what you're doing and go and take a break from whatever is causing you to get to that point. Probably studying too much and without any rewards, because you haven't been studying correctly. That's the main thing. You can spend 8 hours studying the wrong thing, or you can spend 3 hours studying the right thing because you spoke to people in the class and you found out that the professor, you know, he puts on the test the hardest questions in the back of the chapter. He doesn't touch anything in his notes. He doesn't touch anything from our homework assignments. He just goes straight to the nitty-gritty. He gets the hardest questions in the back of the chapter. That's what you have to study. 3 hours of your time and you're set for the test. Versus 8 hours of time that you studied his lecture notes, you did like the homework 10 times, and then you come, you take a test, you get a C, and then you get depressed. You do that like 10 times in a row, and then, you know, God forbid, you really get depressed. You need to get away from that. Go back to your parents' house and live there for a couple months. Who cares? You know what I mean? If you went away for school, talk to them about it. You know, do the things that I've told you about. You know, figure out if you really want to be an engineer, and then come back in one semester. Because whether you want to switch degrees or not, you have to come back, because you know, with financial aid, if you're not registered for the following semester, so like say this is the fall, if you're not registered for I think the summer or the next fall, then you're going to start getting billed, right, for your loans. So you don't want that to happen. What you do want to do is relieve yourself of your stress and go on like a break, right? So that's it. I hope that this, you know, I hope this will help. Well, specifically, if you know who you are, I hope it helps you, and then I hope it helps anybody else out there. Again, if you like the things that I've said today, if you think it might be helpful to anybody, go ahead and like this video. I'm new to this, sorry. Like the video. You know, put any comments underneath. I'll try to answer. If you watch my page at all, I have been extremely busy. Right now I'm pressed on time. I've got to, you know, drive 3 hours right now to South Florida. But I will be getting videos up. This is one of the videos, but I also want to do a heat transfer problem with